Hearken to my words of a film beloved by B-movie nerds. 'Tis a tragic tale to rival the bard of treacherous companion and mischievous ward, of noble Lord Johnny, the purest of heart, and the adulterous Lisa, who tore him apart, of the serpent Mark, the feathered of hair, who took vile Lisa on the living room stair, of Denny, the squire, who watched them for thrills, and the gratuitous sex scenes that gave him his fill, of the nagging old witch, sought after for answers, only to distract with tedious cancer, and the friendship once loving, now ended bare-knuckled, betwixt Mark the backstabber and Johnny the cuckold. And in his darkest moment, without even a friend, our hero in sorrow met a tragic end. So get your reddest dress and your best throwing spoon, as Hackjob presents Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
And we can just pack it up there. That's pretty. I don't think we can.
Yeah, that's all my preparation for the week,
Oh,
so you can
that
take
was
the rest of the episode.
fantastic.
Don't get too used to that, everyone. I just got really, I don't know, I got really creative this week.
I mean, that's pretty much the entire, the essence of The Room is just, taking whatever comes to mind and just putting it out there.
Yeah, so if you guys hadn't already noticed, we're doing the movie Room, the 2015 Brie Larson movie about getting stuck in being held captive, and no, we're actually doing The Room, the Tommy Wiseau 2003 classic. I swear, every time I mention this movie to like my parents, for instance, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm watching The Room. They're like, oh yeah, that movie about the girl who gets like trapped in the room and she has a son. I'm like, no, this is a different movie.
It's The Room.
The Room. Yes, this is very definitively The Room. No movie can ever take that away from this movie.
I mean,
Before we really dive into The Room, do you have anything to say about this week? Anything that we came across in the ethers of the pop culture world?
I know while I was with my parents during vacation, we stumbled across a Netflix movie called Knock Twice or Don't Knock Twice. It was pretty subpar. Didn't really hold our attention.
I
was
have never
about
heard
it.
of that.
Yeah, it's a horror film, but it goes by the tradition, like goes a lot through horror standards, and just doesn't hold attentions.
Slightly more Star Wars news, because we haven't had enough of that. Small rumblings from the mouth of Kathleen Kennedy that there might be a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic adaptation coming up in some form, some fashion. A lot of people are saying movie, probably. Hey, if they do that, I don't care if anything else is good. You could make, like, you could spend all of the Disney Plus resources doing 16 seasons of a Jar Jar movie. I would be okay as long as there was a Knights of the Old Republic. Hopefully, like, a trilogy would be nice. I don't know how it's going to look. I'm sure when it gets closer, we might even have a whole episode on that alone, just predicting what we might want to see.
I mean, I would love if they brought all the old writers, because they left their studios. So they can definitely be called on.
You're going to have to finish those games in preparation for that. That's a long way away, though, so we got plenty of time. Yeah, otherwise, nothing really too much else to say. Hasn't really been any movies that caught my eye since Shazam. I am still waiting ever so patiently for Under the Silver Lake to come somewhere around here, and I'm sure as soon as I can see it, I'll mention it on this show, and I can get all pretentious for about 10 minutes. But until that happens, let's talk about The Room. It could be pretentious. It could be pretentious about The Room. So, excuse me. The Room. By the way, I'm going to be coughing a little bit this episode. Not as much as last episode. That was not okay, and I apologize to everyone out there. But yeah, this is a crazy movie. It came out in 2000. Is it 2003 or 2002? Let me actually look that up before I tell you, because I said 2003 before. I think it might be 2002. It is 2003. Okay. So it is written, produced, directed, and starring the fabulous Tommy Wiseau, a legend of underground indie filmmaking. This movie is many consider to be the best worst movie ever made.
It's
You
like
know,
it's the perfect storm of suck.
yeah, you can you can make an argument for other things, but this movie just holds up so well. You people keep watching it to this day. It has a very very loyal cult following. There's a whole like call and response live show kind of thing.
Very interactive.
Yeah, completely like grassroots came to be, similar to like Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of stuff, if you're aware. I've never actually been to one of those. I'd like to go someday. What would you have you been to any, James?
Sadly, I have not. I want to go
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest room head like in the world. I would love to do that someday, and I'm sure if I do that, I might, catch the bug for it and keep going back. But I've seen this movie 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 times now since we revisited it this week, and it's a lot of fun. I don't really get a lot of enjoyment out of watching it on my own anymore. That's really that's reserved for like maybe your first watch through, where you're just getting a sense of what you really have to work with this masterpiece.
Yeah, I think
Now it is.
a lot of its joy comes from the fact that you're experiencing the remarkable masterpiece with friends and enjoying the
Right. Yeah.
experience.
I mean, I'll be honest. Like watching through it again this week, it was kind of rough because again, it is a terrible movie. But if you watch it with people, like just experiencing it again through the eyes of someone who has not yet experienced this movie is definitely that's where you can draw a lot of fun from it, pointing out all the little things that they don't realize, all the spoons, the framed spoons. Um, and yeah, I mean, we can talk about like our relationships with this movie. We could talk about the movie, its plot. We should a little bit. Uh, a lot of the analysis of this movie, though, I don't want to say that I'm gonna leave it out, but a lot of this stuff has been done to death. Pretty much everyone on the internet who tries to make a thing of themselves talking about bad movies has tackled that, and that's not exactly what we do, but it's sort of what we do. So yeah, we're trying our hand at this. But basically, the plot is, I mean, one of the most straightforward plots that you'll ever find, and yet it still sometimes, in some cases, like finds a way to confuse itself and like not even follow its own structure, which is one of the things that makes this movie so great. It's about an all-American hero by the name of Johnny, who he's a successful upper middle class San Francisco urbanite who lives with his future wife Lisa. There's actually very specific that he hates the word fiance. He hates everything French. Tommy Wiseau, the guy who made it, he's like afraid of the French language, so he insisted that they only call her his future wife. So he lives with his future wife, and yeah, he's just a great guy. He's a banker, and then she cheats on him with his best friend, and he finds out and he kills himself. And that's about it.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward as far as that goes. And somehow it twists and turns beneath the hour and 30 minutes of movie.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we can get into some of the plot analysis, but I gotta kind of want to just address what makes this movie so popular, why it has caught on so quickly or so big. So it's just gotten so big over the course of the last God, what has it been? It's almost 20 years now. Well, about 16. It's been 16 years since this
Yeah.
movie. Um, and it didn't blow up right away. It took a little bit of it took a while. But one of the big story about this movie when it first like was showing is that Tommy Wiseau got this billboard of just his face with the room on it, and it was in Los Angeles, and he just had that the billboard was up there for like months, maybe years. I don't know. I'm not from LA, but it's just kind of like a ubiquitous thing that kind of got people coming to see this movie, and it kind of caused it to catch on the way that it did. And there's a lot of trash cinema out there that never gets quite the recognition that this movie does, because Tommy Wiseau had a lot of money that he threw behind the production of this film, God knows it doesn't show, but he spent a lot of money on this movie, and he spent just as much, maybe more, on marketing it. And there's a lot of people like wonder where the hell his money came from. No one really knows.
It's still a secret.
Yeah, there's a book out called The Disaster Artist, written by Greg Sestero, who was the his co-star in this movie, as well as another guy who did a lot of research into the process. And then that book was adapted into a movie that came out. Was that last year or 2 years ago? I want to say last year.
I know it started as an AMA, or no, the book came out, and then the AMA happened, and then the movie was
Yeah.
created off the book.
James Franco made a movie last year. It's pretty good. His performance as Tommy Wiseau is incredible. The framing, the cinematography, it could have been better. I mean, they were really going for Oscar gold here, and it could have been a lot better. But yeah, he puts in a great performance as Wiseau, and it does give you some insight into like the mind of this guy. He kind of glosses over some things. He kind of sugarcoats it a little bit. I mean, he wasn't really a nice dude. Like everybody now kind of remembers him well because he's just like this funny oaf and like, oh look, it's Tommy Wiseau and he can laugh at himself and that's nice. But like he was also like really kind of cruel to the people while they were making the movie. Um, but yeah, I mean it caught on because he promoted it, and I think it's a really good introduction movie into um trash cinema.
Yeah, it's into that niche.
Right. I think it's so like when the first time I saw this movie was in college. My roommate at the time was like obsessed with it. And I remember we would just watch it, like he and I, and then we get someone else and watch it with them, and then it would just keep expanding. And then like the year later, when like you and I were starting to become really good friends, and like all of our like bigger friend groups, we would like watch this movie. And like we didn't watch it a lot, but like at some point, like every friend group is gonna watch the Room at some point, hopefully.
Whenever a new friend was initiated into the friend group, we all got together and we watched it to make sure that
Yeah, well,
they
I
had
mean,
it.
I don't want to make it sound like we watch this movie all the time. Like,
Well, yeah, it wasn't like a tradition, but it was
we
like
were
one of
not.
those things that's just like, oh, by the way, have you ever seen The Room? And they would be like, no, and be like, well, I guess let's make a day of it.
Yeah. So things that are great about this movie, the dialogue is like uncanny. I think is the best word, because it sounds like it was written by someone who has heard a lot of conversations but never actually participated in one himself.
Yeah.
The way that people talk to each other, like it just seems alien. That there's a scene in the middle where he like goes into a flower shop, flowers from this lady, and he's like, oh, and she's like, oh, you're my favorite customer, and like he pets the dog and says, hi dog.
Or, I haven't recognized you.
The lines in that scene are like, I'm sure I'm not the first person to point this out. I think it was the Nostalgia Critic, honestly. I mean, his episode on this show is one of the things that really caused it to kind of explode through the internet. But like the lines in that scene, could arrange them in any order, and they still wouldn't make sense. But you could get a sense that there's probably a better way of arranging it than the way that Tommy Wiseau went to do it. It doesn't seem to make sense the way that they talk, the cadences, everything is wrong. There are a lot of really famous lines. There's the part where he's just talking to his friend Mark, and Mark's like, "Oh, how's the bank?" He's like, "Oh, we just got a new client." "Oh, who's your client?" "Oh, I can't tell you. It's confidential." "Anyway, how's your sex life?"
Yeah. Well,
That kind of shit.
if I could take the dialogue and put it to a piano on like ranging from like different vocal tones and whatnot, I would be able to play the entire movie on one note. It's just so
Right.
monotone.
Yeah.
Even when he's passionate, it never wavers in pitch. And
It's passionate, and there are some parts that don't make any sense, or parts where he should have different, like the emotions. He doesn't seem to convey emotions correctly. If you've seen the movie, the James Franco movie, they talk about them filming this one scene where he and Mark are having a conversation, and Mark is like, "Oh, I used to know this girl, and she, cheated on her boyfriend, and he beat her up, and she had to go to the hospital. And like Johnny's reaction is like, ha ha ha, what a cool story. And like they were filming that scene, and like they like cut out. They're like, hey Tommy, maybe you should like not, you should have like some remorse there. And he's like, okay, okay. Ha 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 ha! What a cool story. Like it just didn't click for him somehow, and he wrote it and he directed it. Like it was his script supervisor apparently who was like trying to like
Coerce expressions and emotions
yeah,
that are
trying to
appropriate.
get him to act. And Seth Rogen plays the script supervisor in the movie, and it's very good performance from him too. Um, but yeah, I mean the all of the dialogue, it makes no sense. The plot, like I said, is simple as hell, and yet it still doesn't like follow its own rules. We can get in a little bit later to like the specifics of the of like the structure of the plot because there's not really much of one.
Hmm.
Um, but like there's some parts where like I wrote down here that he seems to be conflicted about his conflictions. Like he the whole movie he's questioning why Lisa is being like distant from him and why he can't like get her to talk to him and why he can't like get any answers from him. And then in the next scene, she'll lie to everyone about him hitting her. And then the next scene after that, he'd be like, I wonder why she's so distant. Like, dude, she just said that maybe you should address that. And then a few scenes later, she's like, oh yeah, I cheated on him. And he overhears it and he's like, oh my God, she cheated on me. And then in the next scene, he's like, Lisa, why are you so distant? Like, dude,
It's like a
bro,
goldfish.
yeah, come on, man. It's right there. Uh,
I
but,
I I think I want to make a theory that the dialogue that he wrote was just a placeholder, and he's like, yeah, the plot and all, but look at my amazing acting skills.
right.
And he just
Yeah.
has the story is just a placeholder, so he could just be in front of a camera and show off his cinematography and his acting skills.
And you don't have to watch The Disaster Artist or read the book to get the sense of how full of himself this guy was when he was making this movie. All you have to watch is the opening credit scene where you just see like every credit possible just like with his name on there. And like you see this and like, okay, this is the passion project of a sociopath. And maybe that's a little harsh, but like he's
It is a bit
nuts.
narcissistic.
Yeah, he's totally full of himself, and it shows, and it's made so much better for it. Um, but I think another reason why this movie caught on so much is because its pacing is good, and when I say pacing, I don't mean the pacing of its plot, because like I said, the pacing of the plot is all over the place. They'll be talking about something that's important, and then they'll have a whole like scene to the side where they're tossing a football around for no reason, and like they'll have a conversation that means nothing. He'll explain something about like when he came to the city and he had all these checks he couldn't cash, which I'm convinced is his real life and not actually in the movie. He just like they just got him talking about his life once. But that is in itself, that is paced really well as far as like just constantly hitting you with just like the crazy bullshit that makes you laugh. Which is what makes this such a good bad movie, because there are a lot of movies that like could really be on this level that just don't hit that because they don't maintain the good bad the whole time. They kind of dip into the bad and you're stuck there for a bit. Like for instance, you and I are both we're fans of a certain auteur by the name of Neil Breen.
Oh yes, that
Neil Breen,
star.
he is a figure somewhat similar to Wiseau in that he is completely incompetent as far as filmmaking is concerned, and yet he does not know it. In fact, just like Wiseau, he's so incredibly full of himself that he thinks that he's like the Jesus of cinema, and his representations of that are a lot more overt than Tommy Wiseau. But I would say that they're a little bit different in that. So for instance, we tried to sit down and watch Fateful Findings with some mutual friends, and that did not go over as well.
It was a lot of
Um,
anger.
yeah, they were pissed. They wanted to turn it off. There was like a decent 2-3 months where I was not allowed to pick movies for us to watch.
One person left. Like,
Yeah, there were people who
yeah,
canceled our friend group because of over this movie. It was contentious. I think it's because I honestly think that the ridiculousness of Neil Breen's movies are not as well laid out as The Room. At its best, Fateful Findings is so much better than the most ridiculous parts of that movie. Just they blow The Room out of the water. But then there are 20 to 30 minute long stretches of just nothing, and I will admit that can get a little hard to watch. And it's worth it. I recommend it to anyone who, if you enjoyed The Room and you want to go to the next level, Fateful Findings. But yeah, if you're not one who's willing to sit through that for the beautiful pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, then The Room is a decent movie for you because it doesn't really get tedious, with the exception of the sex scenes, like the last couple.
but they're in the
They're-
beginning, so that you just get them out of the way, and
Right.
then you're
Yeah.
fine.
There's 4 of them. They're obnoxiously long. The first couple are funny just because they are humorous in their own right. There's stupid music and the choreography, I guess you could say, of how they're going at it is kind of ridiculous.
It's got to be choreography because it's not sex. I'll tell you that.
Right. You can enjoy it for that ridiculous for the first couple, and then by the 4th sex scene, you're like, all right. But otherwise, it's just constant dialogue, and each line makes less sense than the last, and it's a lot of fun.
I feel like The Room was just meant to be one of those audition tapes that he just wanted to hit every single type of acting style. So we just made this movie, and now when he wants to go to audition for any other role, he'll just send him that. It says, pick what you want out of it. Just take it.
Yeah, and it's funny because he's trying to act all over the place, and yet it still sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
Monotone. He can't emote. He tries to emote. He gets loud. He gets impassioned, but it doesn't really fit.
Again, just one note. It's just you're just playing one note.
I did not hit her. I did not hit her. That's bullshit. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Well, I think it's fascinating that with Wiseau and Neil Breen, it's like they had all this information on how to make a good movie, sitting there. But the problem is that it was from other people. It was written by other people, and they're like, no, I will write my own. And it's just, so it's not like they're not trying to flex their chops as being a good director. They're trying to flex their chops as being a good, a better person. Totally. And in its entirety. And you can see that because you have if you want to make a good movie, you sort of take the advice from other people and you try to shape it in your style, but they're like, no, they're all wrong. This is, I'm just going to do whatever comes into my head because I'm the best person and I know what is right. And then you get these movies.
The tragedy of Tommy Wiseau is that he's kind of in on the joke. He
is now.
Right.
But not when he made the movie.
When he made this movie, he was completely oblivious, and that is why this movie is amazing.
Well, and I think that's what captures the. See, I always try to look at the movies as okay, if we're gonna do things like pitches and whatnot, we got to capture the essence of the movie, and we're like, okay, with the Room, what is the essence of the room? What is it? What are we trying to capture here? And I guess the capture point is, you just have to, whatever comes into your head is right. And then you make a movie based on whatever's in your head. Whatever the direction is, the music, the style, whatever's in your head, just do it. And then you write The Room, or you write Faithful Findings.
You get that impression from this movie a lot, that he kind of just went at it and just it's almost like stream of consciousness of his wacky brain. But
and the shitty thing is it worked in a sort of way. He's famous.
Yeah,
I mean, the movie's kind of successful.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that now that this is so successful, he can't he has not made another good movie after this. He's tried. He made a couple of he made like a short little television show and another movie like last year again with Mark Sestero. But the reason is they're not really good anymore is because now he's in on the joke. Now he
Exactly.
knows that everyone's laughing at him, and like it took him a while at first to like get used to that. Like he was upset that everyone was laughing at the movie. Um, but now that he knows that people like it because it's bad, he tries to like recreate that, and it's not very good. Um, Fortunately for us all, Neil Breen is not in on it yet. He is much more prolific than Tommy Wiseau. He's made 4 films. I haven't seen the 4th one. Did you see it? It just came
I
out.
believe that came out, yeah, in like 2016, 17.
Yeah.
I've only seen like reviews of it, but nothing. I haven't seen it yet. I was hoping to maybe have a viewing party with it for those
Ooh.
who enjoy it.
The first 3, you can definitely tell that he does not understand that people love it for the reason they love it. And he's not as big as Tommy Wiseau. He didn't have the big LA billboard, so if he ever does blow up like Tommy Wiseau, his stuff's probably not going to be good anymore. But we'll see.
Well, you
I
can
hope.
also, I mean, the money does show because you see with the room, you have a lot of good panning shots, good city shots. You have or it's actually orchestrated. There's
That's
music behind
probably
it.
all.
I mean,
Probably all B-roll though.
yeah, but at least with Neil Breen's stuff, I think all of his stuff he just bought cameras from a thrift shop and used those. I mean, you could definitely tell like the quality is a little bit different. I mean, capital goes a long way, even if it is to the point of making bad movies.
Yeah, fuck yeah, he's the real underground. Fuck you, Tommy Wiseau.
He's the hipster of shit movie of shit
Yeah.
cinema. But
Yeah.
when it comes to like remaking these movies or like making a pitch that rips these movies off, it's like hacking a computer. It's really difficult. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but it's only like it's very one way, and I know it definitely gave me a run for my money.
Yeah, I mean, you said you had some like analysis.
Yeah, just a little bit.
'Cause
I
I
know.
didn't analyze it too much because I feel like all I would say is like it's bad, but it's good.
Well, there was one small thing that because I know, yeah, you're right that people sort of analyzed it to the ground, but what I noticed that was interesting is the idea of stability versus passion, and the idea that Johnny is what he's aiming for is stability. So he just wants his bank job. He just wants his one room house, or I guess 2 room if you count the above stairs. He wants his girlfriend, and
His
he
future
wants
wife.
yeah, he wants to check all the boxes as far as stability goes, and then just stop there. And then you have everybody else working off of their own desires and whatnot. And you see it with the mother a lot when the mother's just like, Lisa, why aren't you marrying Johnny? Why don't you like him? He's a good guy. He's stable. And then they're like,
He supports you, and you can't support yourself.
yeah, but Lisa's like, no, I'm passionate. I want to do what I want to do. And then the mom's like, the mom's written off. It's just the mom's pushed aside. So like, I thought it was like it was a pretty good commentary on the fact that stability isn't enough because I mean Johnny ends up blowing his brains out near the end because everything around him.
Spoilers.
Sorry. All of what he checked off and what he was striving for, because it wasn't of his own accord, it was just the ability to be stable. Once people started pulling the rugs out from under him, he kind of everything that he was quote unquote striving for in the most basic term was destroyed. And I thought it was ironic that you see Tommy Wiseau, who's basically this entire film was a passion project of his. He dumps oodles and oodles of money into, and yet he portrays just a Joe Schmo banker who's being taken advantage of, and then later like kills himself. I thought there was a lot of irony in that.
I mean,
And
are there Joe Schmo bankers?
well,
Like
it's the
maybe
idea.
he's a bank teller, but I don't get that impression.
Well, it's the idea that what he considers successful is just the ability to go to some bank, perform X amount of tasks, and then that's it. So there's no like after he hits that, and even like when he was talking about his raise and whatnot, maybe it was his monotone voice, but just like him sitting there and just not really being interested in the fact that he didn't get the raise and stuff like that just means it just sort of shows that he's really content with his position and he doesn't wish to really strive forward. He's only doing so just to humor Lisa a bit. And you can see that there's a bit of objectification there as well with the fact that, yeah, it's his future wife and all, but I don't think he really... I think she's just a box to be checked and not really a person to be with. And I think The Room does a really good commentary on the fact that being stable isn't enough. And it isn't really the pursuit of happiness, even though you're checking all the boxes. And I think that... So then Tommy Wiseau is in the background going, yeah, I made this movie. And, you know, I'm passionate about it. And look where it take me. And then... Luckily, it became so bad that it received success, which goes to show that in this day and age, you can either be really good and passionate and be famous and successful, or you can be really bad and passionate and be successful. But if you're in the middle, then you're kind of screwed.
So, are you attributing that lesson to Tommy, or are you kind of like death of the authoring?
I'm giving him a bit of credit because it's only with the combination of his terrible acting and terrible dialogue and terrible story that it actually makes a fantastic commentary on the fact that stability shouldn't be the main achieving goal in a person's life. And it's only because it's the summation of all those bad things that really tells that sort of subliminal story, in addition to the sort of all out of meta of him doing everything he can do to produce this movie. But that's it. That's, you know, it's only because that it's so bad that it actually achieves this sort of subtle actual plot or actual commentary on the whole thing.
Okay.
And I feel like if you took that essence of or that plot point and you actually put it with good acting and good writing, you can actually produce The Room as a good movie. You know, with the same sort of plot stuff. So I know in the beginning or previously, you wanted to divide the pitch, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of encroaching into the pitch, but you wanted to divide the pitch into sort of two segments: whether or not we can make The Room good, and whether or not we can make The Room good bad.
Right.
So if I were to do, and that's sort of like where my analysis is going of capturing the essence of The Room. If I was going to make a good Room movie, that's the direction I would go as far as making it this sort of subtle commentary on the fact that, you know, if you're only living to check the boxes, something's going to come around and just tear that to pieces, and you're not going to be a fulfilled person if that's all you're striving for.
Well, I'm glad you followed the prompt because I sure as shit didn't.
Well, that's only because when it comes to the next one, the next prompt, it broke me. It was very hard
to try and make a bad movie, like
to make a so bad it's good Room.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, it broke you. Do you want to walk us through your process? Because that sounds like it could be fun. But like, I was always going to come out here and say it's impossible. I don't think I don't think you can mean to make a so bad it's good movie. I don't think anyone ever has. I think all of the so bad they're good movies are that way by accident.
Well, it's the aspect that so the reason why it broke me is because I took this concept of passion versus stability, and I was like, well, wait a second. If you're passionate about something and you're not good at it, but if you feel it, that you just have to just dump everything and pursue it, there is a chance that you will actually succeed against all odds. Because Tommy Wiseau is not a good writer, is not a good director and producer, and yet he just went with it and produced this movie, and it worked against all odds. And I was like, okay, so you gotta find. So in order to make a good bad movie, you would have to find somebody so passionate in something and crush them. Like, you literally understand that they're so bad at something, but as long as they're like personally striving towards it, and then you film that, and then you display it for the world, and that's unethical and despicable by all standards. But That's the only way to do it, is to find somebody so passionate about something that they're terrible at, film it, and then show them the feedback.
So it's just like a cringe. I don't want to say mockumentary because it actually is a documentary. I mean, you are
Yeah.
documenting this
And
person.
you're not making fun of them. You're that fly on the wall that's just showing it. And
Right.
you get added points for narcissism, that they think they're so good at something but they're actually bad at it. But then you got to show them the feedback, and then the feedback sort of shows, it sort of crushes them in a way. But then people sort of see the passion behind it, and this is where you get like a lot of the cringe memes from, where a lot of people, they see this and they know it's so bad, but then they start showing it ironically, and they start showing it to their friends, and then the ironic becomes the unironic, and now you have a label such as "it's so bad it's good."
But I mean, I feel like then it's just the product that you're putting, or the thing that you're displaying might be so bad it's good. The person, your subject, but your product, your movie. I mean, you're still bringing competent film directing in. I mean, I think that that's just a good movie or a well done movie about a cringeworthy subject. Like, I mean, taking it out of the documentary and just into like maybe like a television show. I think The British Office is a good example of like a really well done, well written, well acted show that makes you cringe. Like you like it's just that's what they're going for.
Well,
They
yeah,
want
and
you.
that I think that the narcissism is the sprinkling on the cake that gives it that special flavor. So I mean, I haven't watched The British Office, but yeah, with The Office, there's a lot of cringe humor and stuff like
Early
that.
off when they're trying
Yeah,
to like be like British
yeah,
Office.
but the issue
By the
is
way,
that
if you like that kind of stuff, Peep Show, best cringe, best British cringe show ever. I hope we should have an episode on that someday. It's so good. Anyway,
but the issue with it with the issue with the old Office is that Steve Carell. I mean, this is at least what I don't think. Steve Carell doesn't actually think of the same aspects as Michael Scott does. He doesn't think like Michael Scott. He's just playing a character. You got to
oh, right, of
find
course, of
you
course.
have to find the Michael Scott
And that,
and have him play Michael Scott.
but is Michael Scott making the movie too, or are you making
Well, that's it. Yeah, and
Scott?
so the thing is that because you're fly on the wall, you would have to receive a lot of direction for how this. It's like you're kind of like a Fiverr director. You're like basically hired by this person to make this movie, but you're convincing them that it's going to be a fantastic movie, and that everything they
Oh,
say is
okay.
right. It's like you're giving. Yeah, it's like okay. I apologize for that. It's like
Like the consultants out there convincing Howard Schultz that it's a good idea to run for president.
yeah, and you never say no. You don't say no. You just everything they say is a good idea, and then let them go with it.
All right, I'm glad you found a way to make that work. Say that it was impossible, because I mean,
I mean, it involves crushing somebody's spirit, but and lying to somebody. So like, I
nice.
wouldn't do it, as that's very unethical. But I think that's the only way to do it.
Right. I mean, I think like the reason that the room is so successful is because it's just like this convergence of extreme confidence in the product and extreme talent whatsoever. You get the same thing like we said with Neil Breen. If you've ever seen Birdemic, that's like that too.
Mm.
Uh, Birdemic is a movie similar to The Room in that James Nguyen, the guy who made it, thought it was going to be like the greatest thing ever. He really envisioned it as this like spiritual successor to Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, or at least that's what he says nowadays. But then he just like Why So, he kind of came wise to the fact that everyone only likes it because it's bad, and so he tried to steer so hard into that and like tried to go out of his way to make Birdemic 2 like a good bad movie, and it isn't as good. It's not watchable. It's like you can tell he's in on it and it's not as fun. And I think that's what makes Neil Breen so interesting, because he just keeps making these things.
Still has the magic.
Yeah, most directors just only have one or two in them. Um, I've never seen Sharknado. And I'll have to watch that because now that I think of it, I think that actually is a movie that they've like gone out of their way to try to make bad on purpose to
Yeah,
certain certain amounts of success there. So maybe that's
it's,
something that should be
well,
looked into.
we should have like an episode on it, because there's a lot to sort of unpack with that style of movie, and being able to rewrite a movie that's bad on purpose. I think you can have a lot of fun with that,
Right.
but that's for another time.
Well, as far as rewrites go, did you have any more specifics you wanted to go into, or was that basically your idea with the filming of the guy? Because I have kind of an interesting idea.
I think, yeah, I think I covered all the aspects.
All right, so I did not try to make this a good movie. I didn't try to make it a bad movie either. I tried to kind of pay tribute to it in a way that like gives it a purpose that like you can actually enjoy in a different way. I think I alluded to it a little bit in my intro, although I was very lazy when I wrote that poem and there's no iambic pentameter, and I apologize. I tried to make it Shakespeare. I don't know why, but I when I was watching it, I just got this overwhelming sense like he's a tragic hero. I mean, he's not, and we'll talk about that how he doesn't really fit that archetype completely. But like, I think that when Tommy Wiseau was writing this movie, he was trying to go for like this Shakespearean tragedy, like high drama kind of thing. And so I thought, like, what's the highest drama I could think? Let's go Shakespearean tragedy. Um, so first off, Tommy Wiseau, or not Tommy Wiseau, the character Johnny, he's not exactly a tragic hero in that he doesn't, or at least he's not framed to have like a giant tragic flaw. Because the thing that brings down the tragic hero is their fatal flaw. And like I thought of a couple things that we could like force in there, but can you think of anything, James, that would be like his flaw?
Yeah, the fact
As
that he doesn't know anything,
right, he's
like
dumb. Is
he
that
just
enough? Can you
or just
make that
woefully ignorant, I guess would be the.
right? Yeah, I was thinking ignorant. I was thinking maybe too trusting. I mean, the way that classical writers like to like they had like this idea of like the sins of man, and like they'd focus in on like one of the seven deadly sins that was like the thing that held them back the most. Pride, of course, being the most common. I can't think of any like of the big sins that
I mean,
holds Johnny back.
that just adds to the narcissism. He's like, oh, his flaw was that he was too nice or too innocent,
Right.
and we're like,
I
ah.
I truly think that that is what Tommy Wiseau was going for, which is why, like, I love your take as far as like, oh, you need to like be less okay with just settling for stability, but at the same time, I don't think that's what he was trying to portray. I think
Mhm.
he's trying to just like represent Johnny as just like the perfect person, and like, oh, look at this bitch who tears out his heart anyway. Like, this is some very like some deep some girl issues he has to work through. But I tried to still make him into a tragic hero. So yeah, we'll go with ignorance. We'll go with too trusting. Um, and then I wanted to try and structure this into like acts because I think that it's an interesting experiment to try and apply an act structure to a movie that doesn't seem like they were trying to go for any act structure whatsoever. So I don't want to make the case that every movie needs a very rigid act structure in order to be good, because there are some theorists who will say that, and I disagree with it. But like, I think that if you don't really know what you're doing and you want something to help guide you, like Wiseau could have really used, going by an act structure isn't the worst idea. And like your traditional Hollywood screenplay has your three-act structure. This is Shakespeare, though, so we're going five-act structure. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get into it. Act one. We got our exposition. So this act, it sets up your character and all the characters around them, and it ends with the first big conflict. So what would you say is the first big conflict of the room?
Well, is it a conflict that we now know that Mark and Lisa are cheating on each other,
Well,
or
that's the
are cheating on
thing,
Mark?
right? Because when I first started mapping this out, I thought, okay, the first conflict is when Lisa's talking to her mom and she says, "I don't love him." That's the first like
Yeah.
shattering.
Okay.
But then I thought about it and I thought maybe that's still exposition because
That does
John,
set up a lot of stuff for.
yeah, and Johnny doesn't know this yet. I think that as long as Johnny is like not even getting an inkling of any trouble, um, we're not really considering a conflict yet.
So,
So
I guess the
I think
conflict is the fact he didn't get the raise at the bank.
I thought it was when he finds out that Lisa told everyone that she hit him.
Oh, that's
Personally,
pretty.
that's where
That
I see it. That's the first little inkling that he gets because
okay.
because I'm thinking about it. Is there any like any notion that he gets from her that anything's wrong until then? It's the really weird part about it. Like she just comes right out of the gate.
No.
She's somewhat supportive in all of the scenes that she has with him, and then she talks to her mother and is like, "I don't love him." She talks to Mark and she's like, "Hey, baby." Um, which, by the way, I would wanna mess with the order a little bit. I would wanna show Mark as Johnny's friend first before you show him as Lisa's lover, just
Yeah.
because like that's how he's supposed to be framed. Like he is the friend who betrayed him. It's not like
It's the
he's just
it's the difference between oh what a douche and he's like oh what a douche.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because when you first see him, you're like, oh, look at this scumbag, and then a little bit later, he's like, he's my best friend. He's like, oh, would have been nice to know that earlier. Um, so yeah, that I think you show him and Lisa. Um, you can have some sex scenes, and then you introduce Denny, and Denny's a creepy little boy. And you introduce the mother, Claudette, and then yeah, you get that scene. I think when Lisa says that he hit her, because that's really Lisa like putting her plan in action to kind of like
Yeah.
break them up. So we'll call that the first conflict, and then so Act Two, right? That's our conflict act. That's where we get our rising action. So the rising action just means we build up the conflict until the character has to make a choice. So that's where we see the Lisa telling everyone that Johnny hit her, and Lisa and Johnny like arguing about that, and, like I never hit you, that's bullshit. You're tearing me apart, Lisa. You can have all your crazy wasted bullshit that means nothing in there. The drug dealer that's like completely out of nowhere, but is like fun that can be thrown in there. Um, what else goes in there? The
The blowjob scene.
I did not hit her. I did not. Yeah, the random blowjob that goes in there. Just all these things that like build up the tension. And then Act Three is our climax. Now, climax is confusing here, and here's like a little bit of a sort of a lesson into Shakespearean talk and like Freytag's triangle and that kind of stuff. And by the way, I'm not an expert, but I do have a minor in English, so let's get into it. It's not climaxes in like you're thinking of your traditional climax of a film, like the all of the conflicts coming to a rise at the end. In this sense, it's in the middle where the tension comes to its most strong, where like all of the everyone is abreast to all the problems that are going on before they start to try and solve them. So like take like a movie like The Avengers, for instance. The climax by this model isn't the final battle at the end. The climax is when they figure out all of like what's going on, what the conflict is, and they are coming up with a plan of how to solve it, and then we have our falling action. So I Tommy is not really an actor, like a very active driver of this story. He's kind of passive. So in order to make this like any sense of good at all, we have to give him a little bit more agency. So I think like the most like important thing that he does to act for himself is when he decides to record Lisa. Right. So that's what Act Three, the climax, is going to be. It's
Did
him. Go
I was
ahead.
say, did the party happen before or after he decides to record? Like where he gets in a fight with Mark?
Well, that's the part. That's the weird thing about it, right? It does happen after,
Okay.
but like, and that's why like the tension of this movie is like all out of place. Like that party doesn't feel right because at that point Johnny knows and has known for a long time that Lisa's been cheating on him, and like it comes to a front there as though like he's just finding out there at the first time.
Yeah, and then he's like, "No, I have to record her." And he's like, "No,
Right.
you have the."
Yeah, he said, "I'm gonna record everything." After overhearing Lisa and her mother talking about cheating on her, or talking about cheating, and then they have a whole bunch of other scenes. They have the scene where they're all running around in tuxes throwing
Tuxedo.
the ball. There's the scene where Denny says he's in love with Lisa. There's the scene where they're talking about Johnny's birthday, where he has that like they have all the conversations with the psychologist in those scenes, and then they have the party scene. So there's that whole middle section which doesn't make any sense. So I think Act 3 climax, Tommy is kind of having his like his to be or not to be, like should I kill my uncle, but instead of killing my uncle it's should I record Lisa. So he spends most of that act like weighing that, like do I trust her, like she's the love of my life, how could I ever like violate her trust like this, but no, I got to do it. And then like he finds out that she's cheating on him, but he doesn't know that it's Mark yet. So we have like we have the ability to like have our whole fourth act, which is our falling action, which is basically like everything's been revealed and now everything's just coming together, everything's falling apart. You have all those other like little scenes where they're running around in tuxes and whatever, and then Act 5, catastrophe, and that's when the plot resolves, but it resolves, as we know, in a bad way. Everything comes to a front. He finds out that Mark's the bull, so to speak. They have a fight, and then Johnny kills himself. So really, it's the same sort of structure. I'll give him credit. It's not as hard to apply to an act structure as you would think. I just want to tweak little things, a couple things, tweak some of the exposition and like make him a little bit more of an active driver of the plot. And the reason, by the way, that I chose Shakespeare is because like I don't know of any reason why this would be made otherwise. I don't think any movie studio wants to remake The Room. You can't capture that lightning in a bottle again. I don't think Tommy Wiseau wants to make The Room. So what this really is like this is just an experiment for nerds to have, and then someone, maybe me or someone else down the line, could actually write this whole thing out, and then people can perform it and just have fun with it. Because that's really all this can really be. It's just fun. So without any further ado, I wrote a scene just to give you a taste of what this would be like. James, did you get your part? Are you ready?
I did. I went over it. I hope I can do it justice.
Okay. All right.
What is the scene set?
So be forgiven because I just wrote this. I did it quickly. And I tried. I did my hardest try at an iambic pentameter, but I'm not very good at that. I think I have the pentameter part. It's the iambic part that's a little bit off. So this is the scene, if you've seen The Room, where Tommy confronts Lisa, and he basically says like, he walks in and he kind of confronts her on the whole like saying that he hit her kind of thing, like, um, "Oh, Lisa, I never hit you. You know, we shouldn't have any secrets. I'm your future husband." It's the scene, the famous "You're tearing me apart" Lisa scene. So that's what this is. So I am Johnny, and I walk in the room, and I see Lisa. All right, we ready?
Yep.
All right. Let me get to my. Here's my Bolden version. "There must be no secrets betwixt us. Come year's end, we shall be man and wife."
You speech with such assurance in your voice. Doth thou assume that I shan't change my mind?
"Wherefore, my love, dost thou speak with such rot?"
A maiden's will is fickle as the tide. You know of this as well as any man.
"This is a jest, of that I am quite sure. in poor taste, but nonetheless a jest.
Enough, my lord. Of this will speech no more. I grow weary of you and must retire.
How dare you speak to me in such a manner? I am your lord, and shall be not deceived.
As I said, of this will speak no more.
Wherefore, Lisa? Wherefore? Wherefore? I see no cause for why we cannot speak. You are the sun that lights my darkest nights. Without you, my life shan't go on.
Stop this at once, for now you frighten me.
You have nothing to fear of me, my love. And yet, you told the world of some violence. With lies, 'tis you that came to strike at me, for thou art tearing me apart, Lisa! Alright, there it is. See,
Eat your heart out.
it's possible. It's possible.
Next stop, Broadway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always exciting to see like ways to see how different scenes can be interpreted. But
yeah, I used to try to write like that kind of shit when I was in like creative writing classes in college, and I never was able to get down rhythmic meter.
well, to see there's with this, it actually sounds like it has like quality in it, or like it has like substance. Like you see, there's the way even when you read it, you could see like there's like some tension that goes on.
Right. Well, I didn't embellish much. I mean, I embellished the specific words, but I got all the ideas straight from the man himself. I mean, the whole you are the sun and the light of the darkest nights. That's him saying, "You're a part of my life. You're everything. I could not go on without you, Lisa." Like,
well, it's a miracle on what like just changing your pitch, just changing the pitch of your voice, like adds to a scene.
yeah, and throwing in some metaphors, but
Yeah.
it's the same idea.
It's simple, writing 101 that anybody can read from any book.
I had so much fun with this crap.
As far as anything else, I think the biggest tragedy though is having Tommy be in the loop, because I can't imagine what other glorious works he could have come up with if he was contained in his writing room.
That's the interesting like moral quandary here, because now he's in on it. He gets to enjoy this life. Like, I don't want to take that away from him.
That's true.
Like Neil Breen, for
I think
instance,
he deserves it.
Like, I feel bad kind of for Neil Breen, because like everyone's just laughing at him, and like I will continue to laugh at him as long as he makes these movies. And he also is kind of an asshole too, so like you don't have to feel too bad, but like on some level, it would be nice if you got in on it, because then you don't have to feel like you're laughing at a dude.
It's like a meta tragedy. It's like Narcissus, who stands upon the river and looks at only himself while life passes him by.
Yeah.
Well,
such is the bread.
Yeah.
Anyway, do we have anything more? Do we have anything more to say about the accidental Shakespearean tragedy that is Tommy Wiseau's The Room?
No, I think we've extracted all we could. It's we found some life in this dead horse that was beaten.
Yeah, so many people have done this movie before into the ground with reviews. That's why I didn't really want to do like a straight up review, because it's been done. But we found a lot of new ideas that I think we were able to get out there. So I'm glad about that.
Well, as far as the next episode goes, what are we thinking about next time?
So I have two ideas that came to me this week. Do you have anything?
Nothing at the top of my head.
Okay, so here are my two. Well, the first one, I have mentioned this to you before, but I think it might be fun. I don't know if we want to do it yet, but I think it would be cool to have an episode where we both vehemently disagree, which is why I think Moulin Rouge would be a good movie to cover, because you love that movie and I hate it with like an ever-growing passion. So
Okay.
There's that. If not, if we don't do it next week, we can obviously couch it for another time, because I think that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one, going back a little bit to what we were doing the last couple of weeks with like looking at historical like representations. I want to do the Lone Ranger. They made
Johnny Depp?
Yeah. Because they made that movie. It wasn't very good, but there's like a lot of different conflicting like thoughts on it. I haven't seen it myself yet. I would watch it this week. I would want to watch that movie and then a couple episodes of like the old, is it 60s or like the old television show that it's based off
Okay.
of. And I think the focus of that episode would be like, how was the adaptation that they made the new one? Was it good? If not, is there any way to make it better? And I think the big question is there room for the Lone Ranger in 2019? Because it seems like
Huh.
such a dated concept about like a something that was important to American culture, but something that is
It's like, is it
uh,
necessary
not only is it
anymore?
necessary, it's kind of like, I
Or
hate to use the word, but I will use it a lot if we have that episode. Problematic. So yeah, those are my two ideas. We could choose one of those or anything else if you have anything you want to bring in.
oh no, these two are good. I am
What, whatever
torn.
we don't do, I'm sure we'll do.
Yeah, so like if we don't do one, we'll do the other. We'll do the other probably the next week. Um, I say
Getting
let's.
really choppy now.
Am I?
Yeah, I might be too. It's good. We're ending soon.
Okay, no, you're still coming in a little clearer. So my bet's gonna be on Moulin Rouge. Let's do some conflict.
Okay, you cut out right as you said it, but then
Damn.
I heard conflict, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna assume you said Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, Moulin Rouge.
So let's get into it. I'm excited.
Okay, so
And
for next week we will do Moulin Rouge. Who
yes,
who's the director or the writer that you hate so Baz Luhrmann?
Baz Luhrmann, my least favorite director in the world. That
All
might
right.
be a little. No, you know what? I think he is. Yeah, I'll stand on that. Maybe by next week I'll have more of a clear opinion of that. But yeah, I hate him.
So yeah, next week we will do Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge. And
Yeah, and I don't know how I'm going to interpret the idea of adapting it. I might not even. Well, we'll see. I might just like you might just come in with like all your good analysis, and I'll just spend the whole time like making fart noises into the microphone because. Don't worry, I'll come in with an
well,
explanation as to why I hate that movie so much. But
I'll say
oh
it
my
might be
god, do I hate that movie?
it might be better off. It might be better for you because since you don't like it as much, you'll have like more things to change and rewrite. I'm just gonna be like, no, it's good. Just copy paste the movie. Yeah.
Oh, I promise you I will. All right, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Well, until then, we will see you next time.
Yes, indeed. See you, everyone.